In the heart of Pennsylvania, deep within the forest, stood the abandoned Blackwood Asylum, a place swallowed by time and secrets. The asylum, built in the late 1800s, was meant to house the mentally ill, but rumors whispered of cruel experiments and inhumane treatments. By the 1960s, the facility was shut down after several patients went missing under mysterious circumstances. Since then, Blackwood Asylum had been left to decay, its history buried beneath layers of dust and silence. But some places refused to be forgotten. In 2019, a group of urban explorers, Michael, Sarah, Tom, and Lisa, decided to venture into the asylum. They weren't ghost hunters, they simply wanted a thrilling adventure for their YouTube channel. They had explored abandoned buildings before, but Blackwood Asylum was different. The locals warned them not to enter, but curiosity outweighed caution. Armed with cameras and flashlights, they ignored the warnings and stepped into the decaying structure. The descent into darkness. The moment they entered, a wave of suffocating cold engulfed them, as if the asylum itself was breathing. The walls were covered in faded medical charts, and wheelchairs sat motionless in the hallways, as if waiting for patients who would never return. Michael, the cameraman, whispered, "It's colder in here than outside." Lisa shrugged. "Just old buildings. They always feel like this." But it wasn't just the cold. It was the feeling, a creeping sensation of being watched. They moved deeper, their flashlights flickering against peeling paint and rusted doors. They reached a room marked Ward 13, a place infamous for being the treatment center for the most violent patients. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, rows of rusted hospital beds sat empty, but something felt wrong. Sarah gasped. "Did you hear that?" A faint sound echoed down the hallway. A whisper. Tom scoffed. "It's probably the wind." But there was no wind. The shadow in the hallway. They continued exploring, reaching the electroshock therapy room. The metal restraints on the chairs were still intact, stained with something dark and ancient. Lisa ran her fingers over the rusted controls, and suddenly, static filled their cameras. "Something's interfering with the signal," Michael muttered, adjusting his camera. Then came the sound. A sharp, inhuman scream, so loud and sudden that it sent chills down their spines. It wasn't an echo. It was real. And it was close. Tom, trying to keep calm, said, "Maybe we should head back." But before anyone could move, their flashlights flickered violently. The temperature dropped to an unbearable chill. Then they saw it. A tall, shadowy figure stood at the end of the hallway, its form barely visible in the dim light. It was human-shaped but wrong, its arms too long, its face obscured. Then it started moving. Fast. Lisa screamed, and they bolted. The hallway stretched endlessly as they ran, but no matter how fast they moved, the exit seemed farther away. The asylum was shifting, trapping them. The basement and the forgotten experiment. They reached the stairs and hurried down, but instead of the exit, they found themselves in the basement, a place that wasn't on the blueprints. A single rusted door stood in the center, with deep scratches covering its surface, as if something had tried to claw its way out. A single word was carved into the metal. Forgotten. Sarah, trembling, reached for the handle. The door swung open on its own. Inside, they found rows of empty hospital beds with leather restraints still attached. And then, Michael pointed his flashlight to the far end of the room, where something moved. A man in a tattered hospital gown stood there, his body unnaturally thin, his skin stretched tightly over his bones. His head twitched violently, his mouth opening wider than humanly possible. Then he screamed. The light shattered, plunging them into darkness. Footsteps thundered towards them, and Lisa felt cold fingers grip her wrist. She yanked away, and they ran blindly, their breaths ragged, their bodies numb from fear. Somehow, by sheer luck, or something else, they found the stairs again. They reached the front doors, shoving them open, tumbling into the cold night air. Behind them, the asylum stood silent, as if it had never changed. But Lisa's wrist was bruised with handprints, long, skeletal fingers imprinted into her skin. The haunting never ends. They never spoke of what happened. They deleted the footage, afraid of what they might see. But Blackwood Asylum wasn't finished with them. Days later, Lisa woke up to whispers in her room. Shadows moved where there was no light. Then, one by one, they disappeared. Michael vanished from his apartment, the door left wide open. Tom was found in his bathtub, his face frozen in terror, though no cause of death was determined. Lisa was the last. She was found standing in front of Blackwood Asylum, barefoot, whispering to the air. When asked what she was doing, she only said, "They never left." The asylum remains standing, untouched by time. And some nights, if you listen closely, you can still hear the whispers of those who never made it out.